Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be discussing a fitting guide for the industrial side. We're going to be talking about the Venture 4, more officially known as the Retriever. Now this guy is the big brother of the baby Retrievers. He's kind of a mining powerhouse. He's actually very fun to get into. He makes mining very fun for a variety of reasons. We're going to get into that a little bit later. First, let's talk about what you need to do to get to the Retriever. You need to be at tech level 7. This is a very powerful ship, so therefore, of course, you need to be a high tech level. That makes sense to unlock these higher level powerhouses in both military and in industrial side. And let's take a look at the fitting here for this ship. Now, I've gone professional style here. You don't really need to put a lot on your Retriever. I know some people go, well, they go cloaking devices or super shields. Really, you don't need to do that. And let's talk about why first. You don't need to do that because this is not a combat ship. Let me say it again. This is actually, believe it or not, this is a mining ship, which means you're not going to go into combat with this ship and succeed. That is not primary purpose. Let's confirm that it's not a combat ship. Let's take a look at the ship information where you can see what this ship is good at. Here we are. It does say industrial ship, not combat ship up here. Okay, confirmed. It does say 1 max strip miner and warp stability, which usually indicates more defensive roles here, getting away rather than engaging. And we do have, wow, look at that, a strip mining bonus. That's not effective in combat. We do see some drone EHP. Again, it doesn't do damage. Or hold capacity, that doesn't sound like it does damage. So I'm seeing bonuses not centered around doing damage application, more specifically around surviving and defense and mining. So I'm not going to build this ship for the purposes of combat. I'm not going to be putting on combat drones or lasers or missiles or super shield tanks, anything like that. So let's take a look at what I will be putting on this ship. Let's take a look at the fitting. Wonderful. No surprise, I've got MK7 strip miners. This is going to be one of the base modules that you're going to be using on your ship. You're going to want to use these. Strip miner are going to be the enhanced version of the regular Venture miners lasers that they're not going to be appropriate for the Retriever. You want to make sure that you have the strip miner variant here. That's going to be the one specific for the ship. Now, you don't need to use the MK7 version. There are other versions that you can use. The faction modules, the story modules, I don't have access to those, but they are on the market for a lot of money. You can get those, and these are very powerful, as you can see. They've got, usually they have a base of 180 seconds here in terms of the activation. They've got a pretty low cost in terms of their gigajoules here, not too bad. And they have an optimal range of 15 kilometers. Not too bad. You don't need to be too close to the rocks to kind of start mining them. One of the best things about these MK7 strip miners that I like is that you do not need to actually target the rocks before you mine them. In fact, you could just go to a belt, sit in range, and then just profit. You can get all of these ores immediately for a high amount of return. So the downside of the strip miners compared to the actual regular miners from the Venture side is that you can no longer target. You can't target specifically which ore you want to mine. It kind of just harvests everything. And to be honest, it's okay. Even though you may want to mine a specific asteroid, let's say you want to only mine Hedbergite or Plagioclase, it's better to do it this way because this ensures that you can increase your gain over everything, and you're still going to mine what you'd like to mine and an enhanced capacity, just with a little bit on the side, a little bit extra. It's still going to be more efficient, even though you want to target specific asteroids. And we're going to do a little tip at the end of the video, or toward the end, to explain how you can diversify your asteroid choice here. Something that many people don't actually know about. Alright, so let's see what else we have on the ship. Alright, of course, the large energy neutralizer, the caltrops. Specifically, we've got the power grid requirement of 405 megawatts. Depending on your power grid loadout here, you want to be very careful with exactly what kind of neutralizers you're going to be using on the ship. Large neutralizer, and I've got myself a Caltrop medium neutralizer. Again, this one is going to take up 45 megawatts. The other one's about 405 megawatts. Quite a difference in power grid. You can see the difference here. I've got 659 out of 660 power grid utilized. I can't go much higher. I'm pretty much maxed out. I obviously have drones with civilian hobgoblins and Vespas I could throw into launch tube. Not needed. Not needed. So the only reason you would want to ever equip a drone is if you wanted to just have them orbit around your ship and potentially uncloak a stealther who's lying in wait to stealth bomb you. But even then, you don't care to do that very much because, well, you're going to be a good player and you're going to be doing some of the defenses that I'm going to be talking about to mine safely. Alright, so what do we want to use then? Okay, we have in our low slots, we've got these Aura Warp Core Stabilizers. Now these are going to allow you to passively and actively nullify the effects of any warp disruption on you, allowing you to get away. So, as we learned before from the Retriever, it does have a +1 innate bonus, which means that by itself, you have enough power, you have enough sustain in terms of your warp core stability to get away from 1 point of disruption. Now, the Aura Warp Core Stabilizer is going to go one step forward and add to that. It's going to stack with that bonus, that +1 on the Retriever itself, and using just one of these Warp Core Stabilizers, it's going to bring that bonus passively to +3 defense, actively to a +5, which means opponents are going to have a very hard time locking you down with even just one Aura Warp Core Stabilizer. But let's say for some reason you weren't paying attention and two guys warped into the belt. They both had 2 points of disruption on you, so 2 of the interruptive warp disruptors, for example. So that is in total 8 points that they can be using on you here. The 5 wouldn't be enough, so then we can add a second Warp Core Stabilizer. Now these do not have any penalties in terms of their stacking qualities, so this still gives you another 2 points of warp stability passively and another 2 points of warp stability actively. So again, before I had 5, I added another 4 points here. That's going to be upwards of 9 points upon activation of both modules. That means I can get away from those 2 individuals who had the 4 points each. So I can be safe even in a situation where a fleet of 2 members warp into the belt and I wasn't paying attention, and then I can pop that and get away. And the reason why I'm going with the Warp Core Stabilizers is because it's just going to allow you to get out of the fight right away. There are people who use damage controls or cloaking devices. You don't want to be in the fight for 18 seconds. You don't want to be in the fight indefinitely like a cloaking device will do for you. These are bad choices. You don't want to be putting a large shield booster or really anything other than this, because you just aren't going to be in the fight. You're not supposed to be in the fight. If you're getting any use out of the damage control or the shield booster or even the shield extender or anything like that, that means you're doing it wrong. You should never be getting the use out of those modules because you shouldn't be in the fight that long, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Alright, so let's take a look at the rigs here. I have opted for 0 combat rigs. And why is that? Well, because like I just said, I'm expecting to get 0 value out of any of these rigs because I'm not going to be in the fight. I'm simply not going to be in the fight. So putting anything on here, whether it's boosting your shield or your shield volume, it's irrelevant. A good player will never need to use these rig slots. This is just a waste of money. Maybe you could just toss a 600,000 ISK to make you feel better for filling the slot because you want to feel like an efficient player because it's empty and you want to feel like you're doing something right, and you don't. And maybe you have OCD and seeing this empty bothers you, or something like that. And then you could plug in whatever you want. Hey, do whatever you want to do there, but you don't need to. The only thing you do need to do is increase your mining yield because you're a mining ship and you're focused on mining. So what do we need here? We've got ourselves a miner circulation rig. I've opted for the Tech 2 variant because the Tech 2s will pay for themselves in a very, very quick time frame. How quick of a time frame? Let me say it like this. Using the Tech 2 rigs, I was able to pay for the base cost of the Retriever about 105 million ISK in about a day. And I don't mean a day as in I was mining 24 hours of that day. I mean very casual day of mining. Maybe only like 2-3 hours of that day is what I spent mining. So I was able to get a good 105 million ISK back, and I immediately paid for the cost of the retriever. Now, what do these things do exactly? We see this activation time adjustment. It's going to allow 25% of your cycle time on your high module here to come off. Let's take a look at what that means. Keep in mind that these do have a stacking penalty. They do stack, but they have a penalty for stacking these modules. We'll talk about that in a moment. I've done the math on that. Using the first minor rig will have no penalty, of course, because there's only one equipped. That's going to take your time, your activation time, down 45 seconds. So instead of having 180 seconds, you're going to have 135 seconds. Using the second minor circulation 2 rig brings it down 29 seconds, not 45, but there's a stacking penalty. So it still brings it down 29 seconds, which is still very effective. That is going to bring it down to approximately 106 seconds, I suppose, if my math is correct in my head. And then using the third minor circulation 2 rig brings it down 15.5 seconds, which is going to bring it down to 90.59 seconds. This, using all the three of these modules, even despite their stacking penalties, is going to be the biggest bang for your buck in terms of mining. This is going to be the most efficient setup for you mining-wise. There's some confusion about, hey, do I want to have 2 minor circulation 2 rigs and 1 efficiency rig? The answer is no. You will have a close efficiency, but this is still going to be superior. And even though it's superior in a very small way, a small margin, that small margin will add up as you make consecutive trips in mining. So that small deficit is much larger than you think. This is the only way you're going to be a good miner, having 3 minor circulation 2 rigs, and when the time comes, 3 minor circulation 3 rigs. Things like this. So again, the numbers are circulation rig 1, 45 seconds off, circulation rig 2, 29 seconds off, circulation 3, 15.5 seconds off, effectively cutting your activation time in half and doubling your mining speed, making you twice as effective. So as aforementioned, these guys have an activation time of 180 seconds. You'll see that my activation time has come down from that 180 seconds. It is now 90.59 seconds, and effectively half of what this module normally runs at. What does that mean? It means I'm getting double the ore than if I did not have those minor circulation rigs on. Again, let me say it again. I'm getting twice as much ore, or half. I'm spending half the time mining to fill up as much as a person who did not have these rigs on their ship, therefore working at twice efficiency, if you will. All right, wonderful. Now, how much is my mining amount as well? I'm getting 1,633 M3 per 1 MK7 strip miner every 90.59 seconds. So if I put, obviously I'm using 2 of them, I'm getting about 3,266 M3 every 90.59 seconds. So I'm getting about, again, I'm getting, let's bring out the calculator here, 3,000, let's do the quick math, quick phone math here. Okay, 3,266. And what we're going to be doing here is going to identify how long it takes to fill up this retriever. So my capacity is going to be on my ship here. The ore hold is going to hold 27,600 M3. So I'll just take the 27,600 M3 divided by 3266. And it's going to comes out to 8.45. We're just going to call that 8.5 here. And what does that mean? That means I'm going to have 8.5 cycles of those 90 seconds to get to my full cargo capacity. If I multiply that by 90 seconds, it comes out to 760 seconds. Divide that by 60, it's going to take me about 12.6 minutes. So I'm going to be getting a full capacity in about 12.6 minutes, which is not too bad. And how much is a full capacity worth? Anywhere, again, the retriever pulls in a multitude of ores that you're in proximity with, so this number does vary, but I would say anywhere between 3.7 million to 4.1 million ISK. So I'm getting about 3.7, let's just use low value here, 3.7 million ISK every 12.6 minutes. Let's just multiply that by 4. No, let's multiply that by 5 for about an hour, approximately, in the ballpark. And that means I'm going to be getting about at least 16, 17 million ISK per hour in ore, which can be further upgraded, as you can expect, by refining, which probably brings that value closer to its true value of 21 to 22 million, something of that nature. So I'm making about 21 to 22 million raw pure product with minerals as opposed to ore here per hour, which is actually very effective, very efficient, especially as a very casual activity such as mining, where you don't really put yourself in much harm's way if you're doing a nullsec mining adventure in any respect to corporation or alliance. So let's take a look at actual mining now that we've talked about it and we've done the math here. All right, wonderful. Let's get ourselves to the belt. We're going to be moving ourselves to one of the mining belts here. Let's go ahead and get ourselves to belt 2.
Warp drive active.
Wonderful. And you're going to see that when I use these modules, I'm going to fill up so quickly. There we are. You can see that the retriever doesn't take too long to warp. It's not too bad. Maybe about, from a cold warp, in other words, in a warp that I'm not pre-aligned to, it takes about 6 or 7 seconds, depending on how bad my line is. Maybe about 8 seconds if my line is really bad. So now I've landed on the asteroid. Let's take a look at some of the things I'm mining here. Let's just add the asteroids to the overlay for the sake of the video. Alright, so we can see I'm about 21 to 25 kilometers off upon landing. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and these asteroids are going to immediately be within the vicinity. That's wonderful. In this case, it's not. So let's just zoom out and approach. Usually I approach, doesn't really matter, one side of the belt, just to get yourself in range and in the proximity that's close by. And we can use, I have 21.3 kilometer range because my skills are pretty high. And we're going to activate these modules. Now let's take a quick look at some of the skills I have to put this all into perspective. Actually, you don't require a lot of skills here to make yourself an effective strip miner or have the skills necessary for your retriever. Let's take a look at what you need. Industrial technology, mining. You do not need mining, as though it sounds counterintuitive, but the mining bonus only applies to the mining lasers for the ventures. They do not apply to the strip miners. Do not get mining or advanced mining or expert mining if you plan on being a retriever specifically. So obviously strip mining does apply to strip miners, as you may suspect. Strip mining does apply to all of the variants of the strip miner that you're going to be using for the retriever and for the procurer and for the coveter, the end game mining ships. So this is going to be your end game mining setup. This is why I kind of opted for these skills as opposed to these skills, because I was kind of focused on long term. I was kind of focused on that end game. And I have 5 in strip mining, 5 in advanced strip mining, and currently 2 in expert strip mining. So you can see I'm 552. I've got a lot of skills here, which increase both the strip miner yield, the base value that you get upon activation of those 90 seconds, and the optimal range, which allows me just more convenience factor to stand further away. Now I'm clearly in range of all of these asteroids, 8, 13, 17. Now, if you really wanted to, you could probably put yourself at the end of the belt and maybe just put yourself in range to mine only the rocks you had wanted to. I don't really care that much, and I don't really care to look around what's around there, but that could be a strategy for whatever reason. Only the edge was what you had wanted to mine. Maybe you had Hammerfight or whatnot, and you could put yourself within that range to only mine that and try to micro yourself. I'm not trying to micro here. I'm trying to just make this really casual. I want to be doing my own thing on the side here. Not too far away to the point where I don't see anybody coming in here. Speaking of someone coming in here, I have identified that some more retrievers have come into the belt. What do we do about that? Well, obviously we don't want to share because we want to fill up as quick as we can. And you might be in a large alliance, you might be in a large corporation. You don't like those players. You kind of want to make sure that you have access to these ores and that they don't, right? You want to increase your revenue. So what do you do? Well, this is exactly why we've equipped ourselves with these neutralizers. Now, these neutralizers are going to drain capacitor. And this is important because what do we need to use for these strip miners? Obviously, capacitor. So if you drain your opponent's capacitor, what does that mean? It means that they can't use their strip miners, right? You can just drain all of their energy, all of their capacitors, so that they can no longer use these high slot modules. So let's take a look at here. We got an optimum range of 16 kilometers on the large. Let's take a look here. This one, medium, is going to have only an 8-kilometer range. Usually you don't want to mix these, but power grid provided we had to mix our modules here. So let's get in range of, let's see, take a look. Let's approach one of the people that we do not want to have mining. Let's make sure we lock him here. All right, you can ignore this. Don't worry about that, by the way. You never worry about ally lock confirmation. I mean, come on. This is for casual players. You want to be a hardcore miner? Don't show this again, right? Don't show this again. So we're gonna make sure we lock him. He's not sure what's happening right now. Look at him. He's using drones. He's clearly a new player. Let's activate these modules on him right away. Stop our ship. We're in range now. So now he's going to have a hard time using his high slots. He seems to be webbing me. Why would you ever use a web? Come on. That's just going to make me warp way faster. What a rookie mistake. So now this person who I've never met before is going to have a harder time to mine. And that's just going to allow us to cycle these strip miners here and get the ore for ourselves. You can see that I'm still getting the hit per guy. I'm still getting everything that I need here. Whereas our opponent, he's not sitting pretty right now. I don't have a way to show his capacitor, but he's probably at 0. So let's take a quick look at him. And let's take a look at him and see if his mine laser is going off. Seems like they are still. We'll wait for another cycle. What kind of capacitor we have here? We're a little drained ourselves. Well, hopefully it's working. Hopefully we can interrupt his module well enough. But yeah, this is exactly what you want to do. Make sure you target these people with the neutralizers, drain their capacitor, then they won't be able to use their miners. Alright, while that's going off, let's focus on the other aspects of the video. What is that? Let's talk about defenses. Now that we've put this expensive, not so expensive, maybe about 105 base cost, maybe about, I don't know, I bought this Miner 2 circulation rigs pretty cheap back in the day. So they weren't too bad, maybe, I guess around 200 million for 3. So maybe about 300 million investment here. Everything else was pretty cheap. Let's just make sure that we're safe. What do we do here? Well, there's a couple ways that we can stay safe. One way is you want to make sure that you're pre-aligned to the station. So now that you've approached the asteroids in a good amount of distance, you have yourself in a nice buffer range within that plus 20 range that I have, 21.3 kilometers. You're going to just click on approach to the station that you want to dock at. Alright, so this is going to allow yourself to move your vessel in the direction of the place you're going to be warping to. That's very important. Why is that important? Well, that's important because when I want to warp away, I can immediately do so. Let's take a look at a common mistake that players will make. A very, very, very dangerous common mistake. They're just going to approach some of the asteroids. and they're going to keep approaching on the asteroids until they get to 0. Now this is a very big mistake, and this is going to be a fatal mistake. We're going to identify why in a moment. Hopefully we can recreate what the new players are going to be doing here prior to having our mining lasers destroy the rocks we're trying to make an example of. But let's go ahead and get ourselves close to the asteroids. In the meantime, let's also take a look at what we should be doing. We are in nullsec. This is dangerous space. What we should be doing here is keeping up our local tab. You're going to want to take a look at the local tab. Why do you want to keep up the local? Because it's going to show you when your enemies arrive, when they land on the gate. Now, if you are in the know for when the enemies enter the system, that means you're going to be the first one to identify when there's going to be a threat, and therefore identify when it's time to align or when it's time to get out of there. I like to pre-align because I'm a Neo player, and it's just nice to be ready to go. But some players, you can still get away with not pre-aligning if you're still paying attention to this cheat code. Local is your cheat code. It's going to say, where is my enemy and how long do I have to warp away before he gets here. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is bring yourself down. Make sure you're in the non-portrait mode, because you can see more players here without the portrait mode. You don't care about their face, their haircut. Make sure you get yourself down to the bottom of the list. Why is that important? Because every person that enters the system or logs in will always show at the bottom of the list. You don't care about looking at the top. You only want to look at the bottom. So always make sure that you're looking at the bottom of the list. Alright. Now let's zoom in here, try to navigate ourselves. We got ourselves a 0. Let's take a look. Let's say, for example, we were approaching at 0. We were kind of moved around here for whatever reason. We approached an asteroid in the back somewhere. I don't know. Let's just manual pilot ourselves a little bit here. Get ourselves nice and close. And this is a mistake. This is a mistake that new players would do. Okay, let's put ourselves on approach again here. This is looking pretty okay. Why is this a mistake? Let's take a look if this works. This is going to be a mistake because once I approach this asteroid at 0, it's going to be a collidable object. What does this mean? It means that this can have an interaction as a wall, which means when I'm getting ready to warp away, this can act as a barrier and affect my warp. Maybe it'll keep my warp on hang because it sees that there's a wall here, and at 0 kilometers, I could be, if I'm going to be warping in this general direction, I'm going to bounce off this wall, and I'm not going to warp, and I'm going to die. This is a big problem, a big mistake. So you never want to approach the asteroids at 0 and be sitting there, because these are walls. These are your collidable objects. They will interfere with your warping away. And when you're panicking, when a red shows up, or a blue that you pissed off because you used your neutralizers on them, and you want to get out of there, you're not going to want to have these walls in front of you. You want to make sure that this number is not 0 or really 5 or anything around 0. You want to make sure that there are no walls in your way. Alright, wonderful. We're going to try to warp, and we'll see if that actually gets affected. We're going to try to... Let's just position ourselves to demonstrate this. See that the station is... where is the station? Somewhere around here. Approach the station. I lost track of the station. Somewhere around here. What's the Stargate? Well... I don't know what I'm facing right now. Wonderful. Even I don't know. Who knows? Doesn't matter. But yeah, let's just put ourselves around here. Alright. So now we're getting ourselves more ore. Let's just say we filled up ourselves to full. How full are we? We're about 3 million. ISK right now. We're about 21 out of 27. Here's something that you could do if you really wanted to micromanage. I generally do this in EO, but I don't really find myself doing this much in EVE Echoes, again, because EVE Echoes is kind of more casual. I also need to lock the asteroids in EVE Online. I don't need to lock the asteroids, as you can see in EVE Echoes. This is not something that I need to do. I could just lock up the other miners and neutralize them to make sure that they're not mining and that all the ore belong to me. But here's what you could be doing. You could be taking some of the ore here. If you really wanted to be efficient, hit move 2 and hit retriever cargo hold. Obviously, you don't have much space in here. It's not going to make a big difference. It's going to be pretty negligible, but it does add up. So you could just choose the maximum amount. Again, there's about 903 in there. So it's basically a free 1,000. and I could store maybe 150,000 ISK. Very, very small. That's why it's pretty negligible. But if you really wanted to micromanage, you can actually carry another 1,000 on here, and in the long term, it'll probably add up. You're going to be holding 28.6 instead of 27.6, for example. Alright, so again, I don't do that too often, but worth talking about. Now let's talk about something that is a little bit more useful. Look at this. I'm getting nice. Nice. I'm getting nice. Nice. Okay, what is the point? Congratulations, you're getting nice. Well, look at this. Pyro. Pyro. I'm getting the same mineral, or the same rock, over and over again, right? Nice, nice. And if you notice, when you activate these modules, you will always get the same type. If you activate these modules simultaneously, you will always get the same type. So what if I really wanted to diversify the ores that I wanted here? Let's say I really want to have a multitude of ores, and I don't want to keep getting the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. Well, there's a way to do that. Instead of getting that, for example, here I got Hammerfight and Nice. That time was a little bit different because the reason it was different that time is because there was not enough Nice, excuse me, some of the Hammerfight there to continue getting the same amount. That'll happen sometimes. But there's another way to make it so that we can mine and get different things instead of getting the same thing over and over again. Let's take a look at how to do that. It's really simple. Delay or stagger your modules. So that's going to allow you to get different things. Spodumene. Nice, nice. That time it wasn't very staggered, I guess. You do want to have these staggered here. I might have messed it up there. Hold on, let me reset. See if that works. There we go. Nice. Pyro. Just we want to have the ticks happen at different times. Hammerfight. That time is Hammerfight. But this will actually allow you to pull in different things. Pyro, Hammer. Nice. Pyro. So this is actually a very effective way to get a diverse group of ores. Pyro, Hammerfight. Hammerfight, Pyro. Whatever's in the range, of course. It's not going to pull out ores that are not nearby. Pyro that time. Still double Pyro, but you get the idea. Whatever is in range, you have an increased chance at pulling out different things here. Although they seem to have lined up for some reason here, which is kind of weird. And they seem to have aligned. When I was doing this before in my testing, it did allow me to pull in almost 100% of the time. With almost 100% effectiveness. That's kind of weird. But maybe I'm just staggering pretty poorly right now. But yeah, definitely try it out. I'm not doing a great job at showing that in the video, but try hitting this module and then giving this one a few seconds and hitting that module. And you will pull in a different group of ore each time. So each tick will allow you to get a different group of ore. Now let's take a look at me warping to the station and seeing if this asteroid will effectively what is going on. It's a party. It's a fiesta. Retriever fiesta. Alright, so yeah, we got a bunch of stuff here. Well, these players can also act as a barrier to us as well for warping away, because players also can act as a collidable object. Alright, let's hit dock, and let's take a look at how well I can dock. Not entirely near the asteroid, so maybe it won't be too much of a problem this time around. Looks like I'll be able to get through just fine. Yeah. So the asteroid, the rock itself, was a little bit above me. Maybe it's a little bit more forgiving. I have definitely clipped myself in the trials. Rather playing around with it, and it hasn't been too nice. So be careful. Even though I didn't do a great job at showing it in this video, again, just make sure that you're not at 0 at the ore, because you can, if you're unlucky in your trajectory, you can be unlucky and get yourself in a position where your warp is going to hang if you're in front of the rock that you're mining, and that's just going to be a big problem. You're not going to want to suddenly slow boat and maneuver around that rock, because your opponent is going to be trying to shoot you and kill you, and then you're probably going to die. Okay, let's take a look at how much we've mined now. We've mined 3.7 million ISK. Again, that's pretty much in the range I gave you in the first part, 3.7 to 4.1, depending on what you're pulling in here. We can see that we pulled in a good amount of Pyro, Hammer, Head Brigade, Nice, and Spodumane. A lot of these are valuable. Scordite, maybe not so much. Not as valuable at mining this Scordite. So maybe Scordite and Veldspar, something that you kind of generally don't really want so much. What you could be doing as well, if you didn't want it, you could be just jettisoning the Scordite and Veldspar in favor of other types of minerals and rocks here. So you can, instead of just choosing what you're mining, you can't really choose, but you can jettison, and that'll allow you to fill up your cargo hold with the things you do want. So you can choose in a very passive way, in a very passive kind of setup here. Then you just hit select all in a nice and easy way, and move that to your corporation's hangar, because you're donating all your ore to them usually, unless you're trying to build yourself a nice Cinnaball for some solo PvP in a future time. Wonderful. Why do I have civilian railguns in my item hangar? These are the questions you ask yourself as your video is concluding. All right, wonderful here. So that pretty much concludes the retriever. You can see it's pretty effective, pretty easy. We talked about aligning. You just hit approach. You can cut your engines so that you're still facing the station that you're ready to warp to. This is going to make it so that you don't need to start turning around and slow boating your vehicle when you're trying to get to the place that you're going to be docking toward. It's going to definitely shave off some time when you're trying to build up that speed. If your opponent is coming into the system, let's say we pop up local, and let's say we have a red or a neutral, maybe those are dangerous as well. We're not sure who neutrals are, the grays are. That means we can start approaching and engaging the speed of our... Let's just show that. Let's just show what I'm talking about, rather than talk about it. Let's say let's just use a safe as an example. We'll pretend the safe is the station that we're going to dock at. Let's say we've identified there's a sketchy person in the system. Okay, who is it? This blue fox is sketchy. We don't like that person. Who is that? Very dangerous. Hit approach at our location here. We're going to start aligning to this area, this planet, and then we're going to be building up this speed. Now, while this is happening, I can still be mining, because let's say the rocks are maybe only about 10 kilometers away from me. So I'm moving pretty slowly, and I'm moving slowly intentionally. You never want to give your retriever like a prop bonus or a micro warp drive or an afterburner. There's no need for that. You don't want to spend 2 or 3 seconds getting to your rocks faster and then having it be useless. In worst case scenario, dying to somebody who's warp disrupting you because you had an afterburner or a micro warp drive. Do not be that person. Alright, so I'm at full velocity here, maximum speed, 199 meters per second here. And I'm already facing the direction I'm going to be warping to. And what does this do for us? This allows us to have an instant warp. Instead of having 8 or 9 seconds based on me aligning and trying to build up this velocity, I'm already good to go. I have the direction faced at right now, and I have my velocity at maximum. I can just hit warp, and I'm going to have an instantaneous warp. Warping at 100 because we're not bad.
Warp drive active.
Look at that. Click the button, warp drive active. Here we go. I'm already moving. What was that? Less than a second. And I'm done. So when do I do this? Again, I align first, and I cut my engines as just as a cautionary setup. And I start aligning, I start moving, I start initiating my engines to full velocity when someone sketchy arrives to the system here. So again, let's demonstrate that one more time. Here's what I do when I am just mining regularly. I'm starting to mine some rocks. I'm facing the station. I cut my engines by clicking the button over here. Ship is stopping, but I'm still facing in the general direction I want to go. Now another person comes in here. Drayakovsky, very sketchy. Sounds like a Russian. Love Russians, but in Eve, they blew me up so many times. I'm scared of them now. I have PTSD. Every time I see a Russian name, I'm very, very terrified. That means I'm going to start putting on my engines, approaching this. Doesn't matter. Approach at 0, approach at 100. And I'm starting to start building up that speed. So I'm still mining. I haven't warped away yet. Maybe he goes away. Maybe he doesn't go away. We're going to pay attention to that name. If he's still there, or worst case scenario, let's say he warps into the mining belt, and I see him because I'm zoomed out, and I can see a lot of players from a far distance have this trail. Make sure you're zoomed out, not zoomed in, because then you can see players warping in from a greater distance. Then I can start preparing to get to my dock point instantly.
Warp drive active.
There you go. Another 1 second, ready warping. Nobody's going to be able to kill you if you can warp this fast. And you have these aura warp core stabilizers as well, for whatever reason that they were able to lock onto you immediately after landing in half a second. So you're going to be prepared for all the situations. You're going to be prepared for the situation where a miner comes to mine near you, just sapping his battery. You're going to be prepared for when something that's super fast and has super high lock speed comes in, a covert ops cloaker or whatnot, maybe a bellicose covert ops, something like that, who knows, comes in and you weren't ready, a stealth bomber. You're going to have the aura warp core stabilizers for you to help you warp away. And you're also going to have the mining lasers, which are obviously paramount to you being a successful miner. So you're going to be all said and done. You can see that having any combat rigs for increasing my shield or damage control, it's not useful. I just warped away in under a second. So why would a damage control for 13 seconds be useful? Why would a shield booster be useful when it has an activation time of 6 seconds? These are not things that are going to be useful for you. A shield extender also not super useful, but more useful than the other two I mentioned in the first place, for whatever reason that you were not paying attention. Let's say you were eating pizza and you came back late and oh no, there's an enemy already attacking you. Then you can use a shield extender, and then try to get yourself warped away. But long story short, just pay attention to local. Make sure you're at the bottom of the list. Make sure you pre-align. And if something sketchy does come into the belt, just play safe rather than sorry. Just make sure you're approaching at 100% of your engine speed. You can still mine while moving toward your destination, your warp to destination. In worst case scenario, something comes, you warp away. Let's say he leaves, then you just turn around and do it over again. You approach the asteroids to about 10 kilometers, then you realign to the station, and then you keep going. And then you'll never have a problem. I haven't lost a retriever or a Hulk or a Coveter, whatever you want to call it, these barges, these mining barges, since, I don't know, 2017 in EVE Online. So, yeah, these guys are very safe. You should never lose your retriever, especially in your home turf, if you're following these rules. If you were, bringing your retriever out solo into a gate camp, then you're probably going to lose it. So make sure you're obviously scouting these stations ahead of yourself, or you're going to be one of the sad casual players on Reddit making a post that they lost their retriever. Alright guys, that's all for now. It was probably too much information. Probably beating it to death. But thanks for watching. We're going to have some more content your way. I'm not too sure what we're going to be doing next. Hopefully we're going to be mining for our Cinnaball. So if you like solo PvP with bling ships, when you really could have gotten the job done with a regular tier 6 cruiser, but no, we're not about that. We don't want to just get the job done in a tier 6 cruiser. We want to get the job done in a cruiser with style, right? We want to get the job done in a very high risk, low reward state, because that makes no sense at all, and we're here for the views. So that's going to be coming up soon, and what I mean soon, I probably mean about a week and a half from now, because we're broke and it still takes a long time to mine for these things, maybe about 2.6 billion-isk of an investment into this one ship. That's going to be coming your way sometime this year. See you guys next time. Thanks for watching.